October 2014. A mother screams in open court. Her son's sentence is just read aloud, and the entire room freezes. No one speaks. No one moves. Courtrooms are supposed to be places of order, of law, of justice. But sometimes, they become something else entirely. Over the years, we've seen explosive confessions, public breakdowns, and moments so intense they feel like a movie. Except they're all real. Some were broadcast around the world. Others were buried, hidden from public view, until now. Get ready to witness the 10 most shocking courtroom scenes ever recorded. Some will shake you, some will anger you, and some might even break your heart. And number one, it will leave your mouth wide open. Behind all these moments is one hidden truth. Stick around, because once you see it, you'll never look at justice the same way again. Let's start with number 10. Judge breaks down. During child abuse case. It happened in Michigan in 2022. A father stood trial for one of the most disturbing child abuse cases the state had ever seen. But it wasn't just the jury that was shaken. The judge herself broke down, crying on the bench while reading the sentence. Her voice cracked, and she had to pause the trial multiple times just to compose herself. The details were so graphic, even courtroom staff were seen wiping away tears. A video of that moment spread across the internet within hours. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. Judges are trained to stay calm, to keep emotion out of the room. But this case, it went far beyond the rules. So now the question is, what happens when the courtroom drama comes from the defendant, not the judge? 9. Defendant attacks his own lawyer mid-trial. It was supposed to be a routine assault trial in Ohio back in 2017. But what happened in that courtroom was anything but routine. Right in the middle of the hearing, the defendant suddenly lunged, not at the prosecution, but at his own lawyer. "You're working with them," he shouted, before deputies tackled him to the ground. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Jurors were rushed out, and the entire case came to a screeching halt. The trial was postponed for 6 weeks. Eventually, it ended in a mistrial. The room was supposed to deliver justice. Instead, it became a scene of fear and confusion. But not every dramatic moment comes from violence. So what happens when the twist isn't physical, but deeply emotional? Mom collapses after son's guilty verdict. In Florida, back in 2014, a courtroom witnessed something that left the entire room in shock. The moment a mother heard her son's guilty verdict, she collapsed, screaming in disbelief. Her son had just been sentenced to life in prison. The room went silent, except for her cry. It echoed through the courtroom, caught on video and shared millions of times online. Through tears, she begged the judge for mercy. "He's all I have left." But the judge stayed firm. The sentence was final. Still, everyone watching knew this wasn't just a legal decision. It was a family breaking apart. That day, many realized something painful. Justice doesn't always feel like justice. But what happens when the one crying in court is the killer themselves? Number 7. Teen killer breaks down during victim's letter. In Texas, 2019, a 17-year-old stood in court, already convicted of murder. But what broke him wasn't the sentence. It was a letter. Written by the victim's family, it was read aloud during sentencing. The words were calm but powerful. And at the very end, "We forgive you." The teen collapsed in tears, sobbing uncontrollably. The courtroom went silent. Even the bailiff's eyes seemed to water. No shouting, no anger. Just one moment of forgiveness that hit harder than any punishment. The video quickly spread, becoming one of the most talked about scenes in true crime history. Because sometimes the deepest impact doesn't come from the law. It comes from grace. But what happens when the victim doesn't write a letter? They speak directly from the witness stand. 6. Teen girl exposes her abuser. Live in court. In California, 2016, a 15-year-old girl stood in court, her hands shaking, her voice trembling. But she didn't run. She pointed straight at her stepfather and told the world what he had done. Years of abuse, silence, and fear, all exposed in front of a packed courtroom. Cameras rolled as she fought through tears to tell the truth. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. The judge sentenced the man to 60 years in prison. But that day wasn't just about punishment. It was about power and the voice of a survivor. Her bravery gave others the strength to speak out. It was raw, it was real, and it changed lives. But sometimes, it's not the victim or the judge. It's the lawyer who creates the drama. Number 5. Lawyer collapses while defending client. In New York during a high-stakes murder trial, something no one expected happened. A 59-year-old defense attorney suddenly collapsed mid-argument, right in front of the jury. The judge shouted for help. Paramedics rushed in, and court was placed on emergency recess. Later, it was revealed he'd been working 17-hour days for weeks, pushing himself beyond the limit. The jury sat in stunned silence as the man was taken out on a stretcher. Within hours, video of the moment was all over TikTok and the news. But sometimes, the most intense moment isn't in the argument. It's in the verdict itself. Number 4 man laughs after being found guilty. In Georgia, 2015, a courtroom was hit with pure shock. A man had just been found guilty of double murder. And his reaction? He laughed, he smirked, then let out a chuckle, as if it were all a game. The judge slammed his gavel and shouted, "This is not a joke." Even the prosecutor looked stunned. The victims' families cried out in pain, unable to believe what they were seeing. The sentence? 2 life terms, with no chance of parole. But some moments don't need violence or outbursts. What if the biggest twist comes from a confession no one saw coming? 3 cold case killer confesses 35 years later. In Illinois 2020, something happened that stunned an entire courtroom. During someone else's trial, a man in the gallery suddenly stood up and said 6 words that changed everything. "I did it." In 1985. The room went still. Even the judge and defense team froze. The man confessed to a cold case murder from 35 years earlier. His reason? "I couldn't take the guilt anymore." The innocent defendant was released and the real killer was sentenced on the spot. Court TV called it the twist of the decade. But what happens when the accused isn't quiet at all? And instead, they're screaming for help? Our number 2 man screams, "I'm innocent." While being dragged out in Florida 2018, a courtroom turned into chaos. A man had just been convicted of robbery, but instead of staying silent, he screamed, "I'm innocent," over and over. Bailiffs dragged him out, but he kept shouting, "I didn't do this." In the back, his mother fainted, and his girlfriend ran after him, crying uncontrollably. The video hit the internet and went viral, racking up over 10 million views. People still argue, was it real pain or an act? The case was never reopened, but it left a question that still haunts many. What's the most dramatic courtroom moment ever captured? Finally, number 1 defendant tries to escape courtroom mid-trial. In Las Vegas 2013, a courtroom turned into complete mayhem. A man on trial for assault suddenly jumped over the judge's bench and made a run for it. On his way out, he tackled a court clerk, sending papers flying. He reached the hallway, but only for seconds. Deputies slammed him to the ground, ending the escape. The entire moment was caught on multiple security cameras. It didn't feel real. It looked like a movie scene. The trial was immediately paused and new charges were added. He ended up sentenced for both the assault and the escape attempt. But that wild moment revealed something deeper. Courtrooms are built for order, but emotion always finds a way out. And every one of these dramatic moments shows one thing. Justice isn't just about the law. It's about real people, breaking under real pressure. These weren't just trials, they were human explosions. Justice screams more than it whispers. Subscribe and tell us, which moment hit hardest?